Hello and welcome to episode 1 of A Mother-in-Law in Trunk. Here we're going to talk about families, the good, the bad, the messy. We're going to dig into generational trauma and all the ways that our health, our mind, bodies, and spirits all get tied up with the people closest to us. Sometimes that means opening up old closets and laying skeletons to rest. Sometimes it means sharing new stories, but it always comes with the hope of letting go of what weighs us down. My name is Jerry. I'm a skeptic and all-around inquisitive guy. I'm joined here by Dr. Reagan Tilley, functional medicine doctor exploring the intersections of the mind, body, spirit in her work as an amazing functional health practitioner. And also with Autumn, she brings a fascinating blend of Buddhist-based contemplative psychotherapy and a real passion for hypnotherapy that leads into the spiritual side of things. And so together we're going to really dig in and find our voice and find our sort of niche here. So welcome. Happy Wednesday, everyone.
Hey, happy
Welcome.
Wednesday. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, digging in, I was going to pass it to you two. You really are the masterminds of all of this. And I know we want to talk a little bit about sort of the impetus, the creation of this. And I was just going to hand it over to you to talk about what made you want to get together and do this.
Sure. I mean, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lean over to Autumn to kind of give the whole background of Mother-in-Law in Trunk, because this is kind of her brainchild, her birthing. She invited me down to get away this year, and we were down in Cabo, and literally we needed to get away. We needed to just have time together, and we really reconnected and found how much we have in common with our upbringing. I mean, right. We're cousins. Okay. So we know we have the familial connection, but when we got down to it, the experiences, life things, all of that, and we just got to talking. So Autumn had this amazing idea, handing it over.
Well, I mean, I think that that's the beauty of reconnecting with your soul people, right? It was like, I don't know, it must have been 10 years ago that I got into listening to podcasts in the first place. And I thought, well, this is a lovely platform. I really like this. I know we're recording visually now, but I am not a very extroverted person in a way that I want to be recorded or have, but so I thought, oh my gosh, I could share my ideas, go deep on this kind of safe platform of a podcast. I then was gifted this bumper sticker from my husband, and it said Mother-in-Law in Trunk, which is one of those kind of sad running jokes because of the deep issues that I have with my mother-in-law. And it's been almost 21 years and things haven't shifted or grown in any conceivable fashion. So I thought, okay, this is what I'd like to do. I'd like a podcast looking at the more feminine side of skeletons in the closet. Like, who is your mother-in-law in Trunk? Like what is happening in your family system, et cetera, that brings that archetype of mother-in-law into play. So over the last decade, I've run into different women that I've thought, hey, would you be interested in this mother-in-law in Trunk idea, doing this thing with me? It obviously never panned out. And then luckily, Reagan and I have rekindled our relationship over the last 2-3 years or so. And yes, we found ourselves in Mexico and the podcast idea came up again and we just hit the ground running. I mean, as far as like, we recorded a few episodes down there. And she really
challenges, just platform challenges.
Exactly. Platform challenges, which is sort of a life story. But I don't know, it made sense for us to work together. It made sense for us to explore ourselves and our family and our troubles from this platform, maybe this feminine vantage point, and together. Our family's tiny, and it just really, the pieces really came together in a beautiful way. So yeah, it just was like my sharing of my mother-in-law. My heart breaks around it. My desires for change, but really that unfortunate adage, which is absolute truth, of it comes back to yourself and you gotta change yourself. So that's where I find myself standing with consciousness again, like, oh, here you go, Autumn. Here's another opportunity to do work. which is the frustrating rub, right? Is like, if you have the consciousness, even just, I'm not saying I have a ton, but enough to know that it's on me, you're like, why can't it never be on the other person or on somebody else to carry some of
Mhm.
the load, which I look forward to getting into with more depth. But yes,
Mhm.
that's where it started for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was so interested because in the moment, I had kind of let my mother in law monster go, in 2018, 2019, got divorced. I'm like, okay, I'm done with that.
Right.
Kids are old enough, they're grown. I don't really have to deal with them except for weddings and birthdays, maybe.
Hmm.
Well, 6 years later, we had our first wedding, and there she was.
Yeah.
And when Autumn and I were talking about it initially, I'm like, well, I'm really blessed. I'm remarried. I have a really wonderful mother-in-law. We talk about how she needs to be a saint. She's already got her halo, the whole bit for all the
Right.
stuff she's done and put up with in her life. And she's just a dream. She's just a doll. And so I was like, I'm so blessed. I don't feel like my mother-in-law is this bugaboo, if you will. And I was putting the context into, well, we all have those things that, I completely drew a blank on it. What's the chest in Harry Potter where they open it up and it's your deepest fear comes out of the box? It's been a minute, but
Call it either.
yeah, but it was one of those things that was just kind of everybody, you can open it and what looks like the mother-in-law for you in this archetype Autumn might look like something or someone else,
Absolutely.
everyone. And so I was really excited because this opens this opportunity
Hmm.
for every person to share their experience, whether you're married or not. You have this experience of that relational,
Yes.
you gained this family by marriage,
Mhm.
or you inherited or whatever, right?
Right.
This new person into your life. And
Mhm.
we all have hopes and dreams. And I think, Autumn, that was one of the most poignant things you shared, was like, you were so hopeful,
Yeah.
have a loving mother figure and a grandparent for your children.
Yes.
And you were ready to be this devoted daughter, and you
Right.
were basically shunned
Hmm.
from having any of that.
And what's interesting in this, is then the wounds that we are holding and what that looks like for our lineage.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a daughter, and she hasn't had that grandma figure step forward. And so it's always going to be a conversation that I think we can offer our listeners, is let's dig into why, let's dig into healing, let's dig into the salve that can help us get through these things and know that we're not alone. Because that's another thing. It was like, well, how relevant is this? And um, I haven't ever had a conversation with anyone about this mother-in-law topic and not have it be poignant for them.
Mm-hmm.
That they did not have, gosh, I mean, a moving tale to tell, you know? So I think that I feel like we're onto something with this. I think it is the time the feminine is getting more powerful, or, I mean, it's a good time to start looking and have that space to look at who we are as mothers and grandmothers and daughters, and yeah, that pillar that we hold as holding that title. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things that we recognized when we kind of reconnected. We first tentatively started reaching out when I was going through my divorce,
Mhm.
because it just felt like there was a very broad opening, and it's I was basically under control. And what my ex-mother-in-law, she's done it already to my daughter-in-law.
Mm.
We're your family now. You don't need to bother with your family. You're going to do what we tell you to do. So it's this opposite of neglect and shunning. It's we're going to absorb you and force you to become us.
Assimilate.
And yes. And it was just
Mm.
so oppressive. And I did, because I didn't have a great mom. I didn't have that side of the family was very difficult. So I just went along with it. But I'm trying to protect my daughter-in-law so she doesn't have to encounter that harshness. And it was really kind of funny that we've joked about Gargamel's, Autumn.
Yes.
That was how Jason described my ex-mother-in-law. She just walks in here like a Gargamel, like
Interesting.
sour grape and
Yes.
purple. It was just really kind of like, I'm trying to be kind.
Yeah.
And I went in with the whole idea, like, I have evolved. I am, stepping into my highest self. I'm not part of this family any longer. And like the first words out of her mouth just made my insides cringe. And I'm like, ugh. And then I tried to say hello to her to be pleasant and, speak kindness. Literally looked through me as if I didn't exist. Like, did somebody fart? Was the look on her face.
Wow.
It was, so I'm like, okay, so this is how it's going to go. So I will regulate myself. I do not have to regulate for anyone else.
Exactly.
It was the evidence and the blessing
Mm-hmm.
that I'm no longer part of that. And so I've been able to move out of it. Not every relationship splits up to leave that. I mean, you're evidence of a strong marriage and you two are a strong team together. So it's not like you're going to be like, bye, Zach, I hate your mom or something. Sorry.
No
names. But
no, totally though. But what is good about this conversation of like bailing from a relationship or a marriage because of a bad mother-in-law is that that's the reality of people's lives, because it is a stronghold on a family, and Zach and I openly talk about how if we weren't so strong, we didn't have the communication, the vulnerability, the capabilities, the depth, we probably wouldn't be together. I mean, because that's how impactful it is. It really, I think if people listening to this, like, consider that. Consider your role in a family system in the impact that you make. Um, and that is what my mother-in-law in particular will never do. There will never be an ounce of reconciliation or taking responsibility or apologies or open dialogue.
Well,
That's
and
not possible.
no, and you mentioned earlier like a salve and like the healing from this, and I wonder if that really is what it is. Maybe healing can only be found in communication with the other people around this individual, right? Maybe that is the solution, is open communication. Maybe that's how you combat it. You don't combat the person, you openly communicate with the people around them and you network together and find strength and commonality. Maybe that's the salve. Maybe that's where the healing is, around that person rather than through that person.
Right. No, I think that's really insightful, hearing our conversation and gleaning that. I think that is like spot on. And this is a situation where it's probably not even possible on that level. I mean, it's just probably not going to happen. It's such a small family. My husband's an only child. It's them. There's no other family. It's just so small and has been dysfunctional for generations, where
Often the case.
often the case. I mean, this is how it runs, right? I mean, you're either willing to look and do the work, or you're just barfing it on to the next.
Right.
Which I really do view as kind of a vomiting of for other, but anyway, so here we sit, right?
Right. I think you and we had that realization. And I think there's a lot of people, if you really get into like the spiritual world, people going through, whatever we want to say it, their ascension process or their self-realization or what have you, it seems to be kind of across the board. People are really coming into this realization that if things are going to change, it has to start with you.
Right.
Like you had that realization, Autumn, like I have to take care of me before anything can help. But more and more people are becoming aware of the fact that if we do the work, we can actually affect our generations that come after us. And there is the potential to heal past wounds so that trauma that was passed to us doesn't have to continue to pass to our kids.
Exactly.
And so that's what you and I remember that conversation about how important it is to heal any of the relationships that we can in order to withstand the ones that we can't. And that's where you and I got so excited. And I was so thrilled that we're reconnecting.
Right.
Because as Autumn said, we have a small family. Our dads are brothers, and there was one other brother who's since passed away. but they also had small families. You know, there's two in Autumn's family, there's two in my family, and we have one cousin from the other uncle.
Yep.
And we weren't the kind of family that had family reunions. We didn't vacation together. We didn't like have big Christmas celebrations. You know, it's like, let's sit together on the couch at grandma's house because we're never together, and we take the picture of the 2 times a year we're together.
Absolutely. You know, and it's like you realize these things, right? Because you're raised by these family dynamics and systems.
Mm-hmm.
And I think coming into rewriting and writing my next chapters and being a married woman, I was so excited about the opportunity to do it differently and to make that bridge. Because, you know, actually, my mom was a total family person. She would have done everything as a group, you know? And when she remarried, that's how the family was. It was big gatherings and get-togethers and a whole lot of fun. And I was really excited about that possibility. But yeah, when it doesn't manifest that way and only goes south more and more, you just, yeah, I mean, you want to get to the bottom of it. So here we are. Here we are. I mean, I really, in the next steps of us talking, I don't know how it rolls out. You know, we have guests, we keep this conversation, we give our experience and so-called expertise. And, but yeah, you know, I think this is a really good beginning with moving into dialogue and hopefully some resolve even.
Right. And, you know, I appreciate how you initiated all of this, Autumn, with the feminine side, with, you know, mother-in-law and trunk, and then we have the skeletons in the closet.
Yeah.
I think when Jerry and I got to talking about our podcast that we were doing, Autumn, he's like, hey, I have some technical savvy, but I'm really interested in the topics and really expanding even off of this, what else we could talk about, because it's not just women who deal with it. No. Men also have the different experiences. Yeah. And so, Jerry, you know, after listening to us talk and then the conversation we've had a couple of weeks ago, what is your take on all of this?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I think I have a couple thoughts. When it comes to, you know, masculine, feminine energy, which is something I know you've talked about before, I think it is really interesting because, you know, the way I deal with it is I'm like, okay, I would just never talk to those people again. Easy peasy. Done, right? I don't worry about reconciling with people like that. And I don't think I'm a particularly masculine person necessarily at all, but it's funny. I think of it more like pruning a tree, right? I'm not going to mourn that I cut off a dead branch. So if I'm married into a family and someone was a real problem, I don't know that I would really care. I just would literally never, ever talk to that person. But understandably, you know, when it comes to being a parent, that adds a lot of pressure to you, right? That adds, because then your children, to your point, Autumn, your children are affected. And I think that's where I think it's important to find some sort of reconciliation. But yeah, it's interesting because for me, I think, you know, I do have family who I've cut off. I have friends I've cut off.
Yeah.
I think in a weird way, it's almost easier as a guy to do that. You know, it takes a lot. It takes an awful lot for me to cut someone out. But kind of once they've done that, I really don't mourn it at all. It's interesting. They're just gone.
Yeah. Well, and I love this. I love this perspective. And I have to say, to piggyback on letting people go and cutting them out and cutting off the dead limbs, I have no issue doing that, actually. You know, I mean, that's kind of because I would never want somebody to change to make it work for me. I mean, it's different when you're in a marriage. There are certain relationships, of course, you're doing this thing together, but for the most part, friends, etc., you be you. If you're happy with you, you don't need to be different for me, etc. But the mother-in-law does bring a very powerful archetype. I mean, it brings to a family dynamic a person that's supposed to be holding some of the family dynamic in place. It's sort of like follow the leader. Like, what is this human doing? And so I think, you know, it does bring into, no matter how much I try to cut off, I think that I'm very easily able to open back to a possibility because the stakes feel high. You know, I mean, Zach's an only child. There's the kids, and I have some, I have some guilt, that with my own, how it's gone with her, and what have I done incorrectly to foster it being so terrible, and I mean, there's a lot to it, I feel.
Well,
But
then that shows such an amazing amount of emotional intelligence on your part, and also just intelligence in general. I think looking in a mirror takes quite a bit of intelligence, and I think some people aren't capable of it, and you certainly are, right? So I
thank
think,
you.
give yourself some grace and mercy and credit for even asking the question, what have you done, or what could you have done better? I think right there, that's amazing. That's an amazing step. And I think it is hard, right? Especially if you want a more traditional family unit. It is hard to think about excluding this person who would be more of a matriarchal, sort of
Right.
traditional part of a more traditional American kind of nuclear family, right?
Hmm.
And I think, and I have to wonder how much of these like bad actors, these bad mother-in-laws, bad father-in-laws, how much of that has contributed to some of the isolation we see in like modern America, right? Where we talk a lot about the destruction of like the traditional family unit on a political sense, but I wonder if it's not even a political thing. Maybe it's just these unhealed, damaged people that are just ripping us apart, and we have to cut them off. And it's changing the face of the family, right? In ways that are good because you're cutting off the dead branches,
Right.
but in ways that are bad because you're giving up a lot of tradition, right? There's a lot
Yeah.
of generational knowledge and tradition
I think
that's
you're
being
really
washed
onto
away.
something.
I agree.
I
Yeah.
love what you just said, Jerry. I really think you're onto something.
I think
Yeah.
it definitely is kind of that representation of the dream of how we could be
Hmm.
as an ideal family, the Norman Rockwell family, right? Where you have grandma sitting in a
Mm-hmm.
rocking chair and all the kids at her feet. And
You've got the family home, everybody comes,
yeah,
congregates to for the holidays.
right. But then I feel like we have the garbage pail kid backside of the Norman Rockwell painting of,
Yeah.
grandma's drinking or grandpa's doing whatever. And,
And the funny thing is
it's
I always preferred garbage pail kids anyway. Maybe I should just surrender and be like, what the fuck am I upset about? I got it.
right. So
Well, first F bomb of the podcast.
there we go.
There we go.
Move up to adult rating.
I'm 36.
But it's just, we want it to look like, everybody's well coiffed and in their nice
Yes.
outfit and nobody's got stains and everybody's using pleasant language. And then the reality is you go in there with these expectations and then that mother-in-law looks at you, like,
Yeah.
I can't believe you wore that. Or, hey, you got fat. How much weight have you gained? Favorite line ever.
Oh,
right.
That's nice.
So yeah, there's a lot of these things that steal that idealism, that the idyllic feel of what it could be to be part of this wonderful family.
Yeah. So,
No, you're fine.
well, so then that said, I mean, brilliant words from you both. Then we look at starting where we're at. We look at the reality of our lives and our garbage pail leanings. And we say, okay, let's start here. Let's get rid of because isn't that the issue? And it's not a new one in my opinion. This facade of it's just not this facade of Hollywood perfection. I mean, I think I don't know when it began, but it's a very long time ago that we look and dress and act, speak, eat a certain way, or we're rejects. But I don't feel like many people are that happy. I mean, it's broken, right? I will say one more thing. My husband has done a lot of deep diving on things like Reddit, looking at our generation and our parents' generation. And it's a very common thing to excommunicate. I mean, it's become a very, very new norm to say,
Yeah.
I'm not involving myself in this toxic relationship with my parents anymore.
Well, it's also not becoming super uncommon, especially in professional circles and scholastic circles, to adopt new parents. I had in high school, I had a school dad and a school mom that I went to for anything that was really important to me. My art teacher and my literature teacher, they were my school parents. And then, when you go to college or do whatever, you find your family, those people that you bond with, and the ones that, there's the ones that are with you for a season, ones that are there for a lifetime, the ones that are there for a lesson, whatever that little weird saying is. But I do feel like there's more and more people that are finding and creating the family of their dreams because you don't have this obligatory, well, we're blood.
Right.
As much as the value of having a blood relative that can really feel with you, the family, because that's where I feel like you are for me, Autumn.
Yeah.
There's a lot of the blood that you're like,
thank you.
I don't want to admit that I'm related.
Right. Tainted blood.
So
yeah. I know. I love this. I mean, for me, this is invaluable, these conversations, because this mother-in-law concept, idea, false pedestal of what I thought I needed or wanted, maybe that will never completely go away. But I think what we can do is tease it apart, and I think that, I just think it's so valuable to look at people coming into, ideas of themselves in relation to family, and what is okay.
right.
Yeah.
I think I'm officially a mother-in-law now.
Congratulations. And you're going to have
October 11th. And I was so worried because the kids were living with us until they closed on their house. And so the two of them, they'd be here half the week. And then my daughter-in-law would be at her grandma's taking care of her while my son was working, because that's how they work their schedule. They work at the same days and then they're home the same days. And one of the evenings he was at work and she stayed with us because it was just easier. And we were chatting and I said, I don't ever want you to feel like you're being eclipsed. Like, I'm not here to make your life harder. I'm here to welcome you in. I feel like you're an addition and a bonus into our family. Yes. And I never want to create any sense that it's Andy and I against you, or that you two have to decide whether what you need together as a unit is more important than what I have to do with you, because that's not what it should be. And this is where she opened up about this terrible experience with my ex-mother-in-law, who's now her grandmother-in-law.
Yeah.
And there is difficulty there. And so I just let her know, I said, we're never going to make holidays hard. We're going to plan it. If you can make it, you can make it. If you don't, we're not going to talk bad about you. We're not going to tell you you're a loser. You're going to be welcome. And if you can come another day, come have dinner. It's really not going to be that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Because I love you every day. It doesn't matter what day of the week it is,
Oh, Reagan, that is setting the tone for lives. I mean, to me, that's massive. On my wedding day, they weren't even going to come. They did. It was awful. We had like 10 people like in our backyard, very small. It was extremely hurtful. There was never a one-time congratulations. There was never welcome to the family. They didn't eat dinner at dinner. They got up to leave the restaurant and weren't going to say goodbye. It takes a sensitive person and turns them on end. You think, what did I do? What is wrong with me? Because it's a very interesting dynamic. But yeah, wow, that's such a cool way to set the tone for their lives together.
Yeah. And I made sure it was always a me against them with my ex-husband.
Yep.
Always. Like, his sister and his mom are always going to be more important, and there got to be a point. People used to think he was married to his sister and I was the sister and she was the girlfriend or the wife. It was so uncomfortable. And what happened during this conversation, Josie's like, I'm not trying to talk poorly about anybody. I'm so sorry. I'm not trying to, I'm like, you know what? You can speak freely. It's fine. I get it. I was there for 25 years. But more than anything, you two are going to be the nuclear family now.
Right.
It's not going to be Andy and his family against Josie. It's going to be Andy and Josie And what you both need is going to be pivotal and paramount to every decision. It should not be what his dad wants, what his mom wants, what your mom and dad want. That can be considered, but you have to decide what's going to be best for you. And so I wanted her to hear that. So she never, like, she didn't need to worry.
Yeah.
That she needs to show up different.
Right. Or show up to appease you because she has to win your affections. I mean, that's exactly in this conversation, because my in-laws are coming in a week. True to form. They're coming on a Wednesday. They're leaving Saturday morning. And they never reach out to me about plans. It's always through their son, because there's always this dynamic of he's still a single person. And also that dynamic that you sort of mentioned of the other woman. I almost felt like the other woman to his mom, even though it really wasn't my husband's, and it was, but her, she was holding this space that almost felt like, but
Right.
they get a hold of him about when to come, which is also funny because I do hold that very female archetype of mother, calendar holder. I that's the space I hold. So anyway, they are coming on a Wednesday and leaving on a Saturday morning to once again not see the grandkids. I just think interesting. But here we are, right? We're doing it. And wish me luck.
You'll do great. You'll do great.
Because Zach says, well, there's no such thing as unconditional love. Everything is conditional, and that is this experience that, I have had with her is, it's so moment to moment. And that's
because you had a hopeful moment not that long ago.
I did. I had a very hopeful moment, and then it crashes down because I think, Jerry, you just mentioned emotional, what did you say? Intelligence. And when you're working with people that are at a very low level of something like that, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, I think it's factual. Some of these things, there really is no surpassing very low bar of elementary functioning. So we'll see, when you're working in a very conditional situation, growth is difficult. And so, yeah,
it's very lizard brain, right? It's
Yes.
very like these people are coming from a very reactive place, a very childish place, right? The I'm hungry, so I'm going to make everyone miserable until I get what I want kind of place. Like the way a child perceives and interacts with the
100%.
world, it screams.
That's exactly how it goes.
And it really makes me very sad for them that they've never sort of grown and evolved past that. Because I agree. I think it's not being judgmental to be factual that there are some people who just never really achieve a level of emotional intelligence for whatever reason, whether it's trauma, whether it's just their general ability to be intelligent. Like, I don't know. I think everyone has value, but not everyone's the same. Some people just don't seem to progress through the levels like others do. And these people are often ones that are just very reactive, very low tier, just trying to drag everyone down. And they are so good at dragging you down to their level where everything makes sense to them.
Yes.
And Reagan, you brought that up. You brought that up earlier with some of those comments, right? She wanted to bring you down onto her playing field where everything makes emotional sense. All the dominoes make sense. Cause and effect makes sense. The physics of their world makes sense to them at that level. And so they're really good at just dragging everyone down with them like a drowning person, drowning in their own misery.
Yep.
And I think, again, one of the best ways to combat that is just not to be in the water with a drowning person. As bad as that sounds, let them drown. Is they're going to drag you under. And I think something else you talked about a lot too, Autumn, and what I would encourage you to really dig into coming up into this visit is communicate with your loved ones who were there, right? That is the salve, that is the heal.
Yes.
Not with them, but with the people who are going to be around them. Get your coalition together and it with love, with camaraderie, and safety, emotional safety.
Yeah.
Have those communications before this happens. And that really is the way to combat this is to get with the people around you and be really secure emotionally with them.
Yeah. No, you're so right. I love that again, because I think what can happen in these situations is we all start getting pulled under one by one, and it can really take that ground away quickly. And you watch your husband, you watch yourself, you watch your kids move into regressive patterns of functioning.
Yes.
And thankfully, we're aware enough to look at each other and say the code word, etc. But it happens like clockwork, because it is an extremely
They're good.
They're good. They're good. It's down and dirty. I mean, just case in point, them showing up once again midweek when we've got teenagers who are gone 8 a.m. to 5 every day. Like, who does that? And now that she has been confronted gently, but to the point, confronted about it, she has taken herself completely out of the conversation. So now Zach's dad always has stepped in. I mean, it is like clockwork, and it is an interesting dance, to say the least. But yeah, you do have to rally your supporters.
Yeah. And that's also recognizing that as we sit back or as I was listening into all of this, our parents are baby boomers, and their parents were the silent generation. So how loud did they have to scream? Or what was the response when they did speak up for their needs? Was to get beat down, right? Shut up, suck it up, it's fine. And so they went and did their thing. And I feel like I remember a little notice that your in-laws kind of have this idea of like, they've raised a son, they have a son, but they're also living almost like they don't have any responsibility any longer. Like, they don't want to be that grandparent role. They've like done their due diligence in raising Zach, and we get to say, oh, he's our son. And then beyond that, there's no ownership.
Right.
Of, you have Zach, and then the rays of the amazingness that he's done in life, they can only see like that center cog. They're not seeing all of that other wonderful that he's made. It's like they're blind to it almost, or it's blinding, and they can't see the rest of what that is that makes him amazing.
Right.
And, I've got the victim mother, and I've got, we're not going to go into our dads right now. We're talking about moms.
Yeah. This is mother-in-law.
Yeah. And it's like, you can only be around so many wounded children and victims and all of that before you start recognizing this is a wound, this is a pathology, this is something that they learned, but they weren't given the tools. Like, they were given church, they were given school. That's all they were given.
Right.
And if they went outside of those, then they were ostracized. And so we've been like given more tools, I feel like, or we've been so curious because they're so broken. We're like, that didn't work for them. What else is there?
Absolutely.
And so I think that's also why our generation is getting a little bit more adept at healing or working towards the healing. Because it didn't work for them. They're still so broken.
Well, it didn't work for them. And you're bringing up all these key points now. You're bringing up, again, the healing piece, the seeking piece. You're bringing up different aspects of this mother-in-law archetype of the victim. Mine is a victim, and she is ultimate martyr. So she would rather create disharmony and anti-relationships with her only 2 grandkids to have a sob story than just be part of our lives, because she has been invited in with open arms 100 times. Come, fly out here, stay for a month, be the grandma you want to be, bake with Ophelia, do these things. But she would rather skip it all, because then she can cry herself to sleep at night.
Yeah.
Yeah, because in that world makes sense to her for whatever reason.
Yes, which brings back to what you said.
Yeah, for whatever reason.
Trauma versus the unknown healing.
Right.
And that's such a screwed up thing, but it is the pattern for so many people.
It is.
I love that. The safety of trauma versus the unknown of healing.
Because I think we can all relate to the safety of trauma, can't we? Even our own. Falling back into that old pattern.
Right.
The auto.
Well, because you know what's going to happen. You know it's going to be, there's going to be a blow up and somebody's going to go off into their corner and pout and throw a fit and somebody else is going to do this and, oh, watch them. They're going to go have a drink or they're going to do this. We know. So we predict it. Like we tell the future, right?
Patterns. I mean, we've talked so much about patterns too. I mean, I think that that is quite obviously going to be a kind of a crux of conversations. And as guests come on, you know, the patterns, what are your patterns? What do they look like and why? Do you see them?
Right.
How would you like your life to unroll instead of this predictable BS that you play out? You know, no shame. We've all been there.
Well, you and I had that. I think that was many of our conversations about how we want our lives to look and how hard it is and how hard we're working to kind of live in that self-regulated space, to live in that healed space and not let these wounds or these other little things come and scrape the bandages or scrape the scabs off.
Right.
But it's something else. It's really quite an amazing thing.
You guys have disappeared.
Yeah, it's amazing to watch them work, right? Because they have perfected the kind of line of bullshit so well.
Yeah.
And they've choreographed it, and they've choreographed everyone around them, you know, because there's a comfort in the pattern. There's a feeling of control, right? If I can manipulate people to do this thing, I'm in control and I'm safe, right? There's this real inner child that's hurting within them that's making everyone else hurt. But I think that's such a good point, right? Kind of diving into like these people hurt people, right? I think there is a layer of compassion we can all have for these individuals because they got hurt at some point and they did not have the tools to deal with it. Reagan, you pointed that out brilliantly. You know, generationally, we have a lot of tools today that no one has had before, and social acceptance today that no one has had before. And I think that these people are damaged and they just didn't have the access, the intellect, the cultural sort of social currency and safety to seek healing. And now here they are hurting again and again and again, right? Because there's two types of people in the world. There's people who got hurt and say, I don't want anyone else to hurt, or people who got hurt and they're like, I went through it and you should go through it too. Right? And that's what these people are choosing. And that's a really sad choice. But it's their choice to make, but then we have to deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. My husband and I were talking about our 11-year-old who is the youngest of 5, technically, in our family. He's been over half of his life a sibling with 4 big brothers. So he can't say that he doesn't have brothers. Like more of his life, he's had brothers than he hasn't. And, but he's being raised as an only child because all of our other sons are grown. But my husband and I were trying to decide, nothing phases this kid. And we're like, are we going to have to Gen X him? Like, we were like, do we need to do to him what was done to us to set us straight, to give us the tools to function and survive in the world? And on one hand, I'm like, oh yeah, that's how we did it. It's the way it's going to have to be. He can't be a good human without it. And then the other side of me is like, ooh, that kind of feels icky because that feels neglectful and not compassionate, and he's not being heard, and all of the things that we didn't get, you know.
Yeah.
We came out, I think we came out okay, but at the same time, we don't need to allow him to be as hurt as we were hurt and have to go through as much healing. So trying to figure out how to download healing into this kid who just like completely lives like this in our face. I gotta find that happy medium.
I mean, that is because, you know, I have to say, like, I value for the pain that my childhood, I mean, it was, but I really value it.
Yeah.
I would not have wanted it any differently.
Yeah.
It's hard to raise kids on different generations.
Yeah, we didn't have the fear that the kids these days have. Like fear, terror, and anxiety are like the top 3 emotions young kids bring in when you ask how they're feeling. I'm afraid, I'm scared, I'm anxious, my anxiety.
Oh, all day long. Anxiety.
What the hell? Yeah. Like, let's talk about anxiety. Let's not talk about, you know, your bad back or your sore throat or your bad ear. All of those are just somatizations of you're anxious about everything. You're anxious about what you eat, what you put on, who's walking, who's talking, who's looking, who's...
Yeah.
It's it's a scary world to live in these days.
It
To be
is.
honest, it really is.
Microscope. Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to figure out how to like deconstruct it a little bit so that the terror can go away, that the fear doesn't have to be the overriding emotion. Let's look at curiosity and interest.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Sorry, that was a big segue away, but
No, but it's all just the family dynamics, right? And how we work with them.
yeah.
Yeah, and
I'm
fear
drinking
really
more
drives us
heartburn.
down.
My Diet Coke that gives me heartburn, and I'm having heartburn, so I'm going to take another sip of heartburn.
Double down.
Mm-hmm.
Jerry, what were you
You're already
saying?
in it.
Sorry,
You're already there. You already did it. It's like when you eat a cookie. Well, I already ate a cookie, so I should
Right.
eat a couple
Have another
more.
Totally. Oh
Um,
boy.
yeah, I think fear is really an emotion that, on one hand, I think can be a real gift, because I think fear can help people in abusive or dangerous situations, and I think fear can be a survival tactic, right? On the other hand, fear and anxiety without a real solid solution can really just destroy a person's emotional intelligence and their growth, and really drag them down to their base instincts in a really negative way. I think that could be an interesting conversation to dig into, because fear can be both pro and con. It can be a positive and a negative.
Right. Well, just thinking about that, your mother-in-law's withdrawal, into the martyrdom and victimhood, and it's easier to be angry or sad or hurt than it is to be vulnerable.
Well, it's easier to be rejected. And so she
Yeah.
constantly will set up a situation where she's rejected, though she has fabricated the entire scenario every time. So there's no getting closer because it's a constant state of rejection and
Right.
again, the victim and the martyr. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The fear.
Yeah.
The fear of vulnerability. I mean, the second
Yes.
that we're together and I get emotional and say, I love you, let's do this, I probably won't hear from her for 6 months. Then communication will stop. If we're texting and things get real, and it's always like lovely real, like if I'm just like, I'm here, like, please come be a part of our lives, it's over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is really sad.
Well,
That
because
is really sad.
it is really sad. It's that fear can keep us safe, but hopefully we're having, we're having an experience of fear with some consciousness, right? I think it's those unbridled emotions that kind of lead us into a spiral into nothing, or
Right.
Or
I try to
unexamined emotion. Sorry.
Yes. No, you're good. Unexamined emotions. It's
right.
That's a whole other thing. I'll go into that another time. The unexamined emotions is like, sometimes we need to not be emotional about things.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we have to look at the facts.
Yeah.
Right. I had a medical mediumship experience with a woman who can kind of do intuitive medical healing, if you will. And she's like, you don't have to attend to every emotion you experience. Emotions can create pathology. Emotions can create story around facts. And so you need to have things that are practicalities, the things that there's not to be any emotion assigned to it, that this is everyday life. This is living. It's like paying your bills, keeping the lights on, cooking the food. There shouldn't be an emotional attachment. But I say those things. Think about how many people, when is it what you're eating that creates the emotional attachment, Autumn? Like, what's for dinner? And then it turns into this big, woe is me, woe begone, what have you. And then, or, it's like, well, we need to save money this month. And it turns into this anxiety ridden,
right.
Are we broke? Or, no, this is a fact. We know that we're going to have more money next week. We just can't do this today. There shouldn't be any emotion around it. And so that has been really an insightful way for me to try to move my body into things.
Right.
Is there an emotion that needs to be attended to and given attention so that we can honor what it's telling us? Because this is that, fight and flight. Am I going to die or not?
Right.
Or something that my brain is going into because it's my habit to go into this emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And really, it's not a big deal. It's like it's a can of beans versus a can of like corn.
Right.
Big whoop, right? It's food.
Exactly.
We're eating. Okay. You're
Exactly.
hungry. There's food.
Mm-hmm.
But I was teaching this young lady that came in with her problems were anxiety related. And I said, we need to really define anxiety. You can have concern. This is low level concern about something. I'm concerned about what my hair looks like. I'm concerned about what that might taste like, or I'm concerned what those people are thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And you give it more power. I have anxiety about, or my anxiety, we're owning anxiety now. It's mine. Oh my God, it's all mine.
Yes. There
And
you
then
go.
I'm afraid. I have fear.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and these people are using the I have fear about what I'm going to have for dinner. That's
Mm-hmm.
Avery at dinner time. I'm afraid what it might taste like. What are you afraid of? Is it going to bite you?
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to kill you? We are not living in the Josian dynasty where somebody's going to poison you with dinner, right?
Right.
What are you afraid of? You're concerned that you might not like the way it tastes. So trying to put a level, this is that identifying, is this the right emotion? Is this,
Mm-hmm.
what's the
Is it
scale?
appropriate?
Yeah.
Right.
And so that's a big deal because so often our programmed emotional reactivity is DEFCON 9.
Mm-hmm.
Or it should really be,
It's maladaptive.
Yeah.
It's
We need to bring it down a
absolutely
little bit.
adaptive.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's where we're really caught in a bind here in general with our emotions and our health. And it all comes back to patterns, right? Just like you're saying, like, what are we choosing? Oh, you're choosing to over identify and make this pathway in yourself and your life and the way you function in the world, which ultimately is only going to cause you pain and disease, etc. Yeah, it is fascinating how we over identify, and it like gives us a sense of worth or a place in the world. I always think about it like, what badge are you willing to wear and why?
Yeah. Yeah.
You
It's
know?
like we are giving permission to have the response that we're having.
Mm-hmm.
I had a wonderful conversation with a woman not too long ago about finding fault. Like, it's not other people's faults. The way we have emotions, they're on us. They're not on the other person, because if we're giving that power away, if somebody else is making us feel a certain way,
Right.
or if it's somebody else's fault. And there are going to be situations that you didn't have true fault in, when you're assaulted or you're attacked or you're what have you. It's not your fault.
Mm-hmm.
There's no fault there. But, there are other things that do occur that it's like, you don't have to put blame on someone else. They might have had a part in it, but it's your responsibility to own your regulation. And it's very difficult to be in the moment and bring that in, because that was that whole day of the wedding. I'm like, okay, what am I going to do to regulate? Because I know that I can go into this place. And so I turned on bass nectar, EDM music, pounded it out as loud as I could in my car while I'm going down the road, like getting my system in the vibrational frequency that my body likes to be in when I'm anxious, to bring it down.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said my affirmations and my prayers, and I did all the things. This is how I want to show up today. This is what I want to be. I'm going to be a servant. I'm going to be humble. I'm going to be helpful. I'm not a victim here. And so when I showed up and there was a few moments of that little bit of a spin out, I remembered, like, what am I here for? What am I here to do? How am I going to be responsible for me? Because I'm the only thing I have 100% control over is myself.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody else. I can't do anything for anybody else except for be the best me I can be. And so through all of the chaos that happened that weekend, it was a gorgeous wedding that went completely off the rails because of catering and some other stuff, but it worked out exactly as it should have been.
Right.
Just because that's the only way to look at it. The timing will be what the timing is. And so that side of the family left at 7. I stayed until 9:30 to help clean up and do all of the things. But I know that I was providing my
Your best.
highest self. Yep.
And that is it. And, I look forward to these conversations, as it unfolds with guests on here about where they stand in that reality of taking responsibility and taking on other people's judgments or comments. being trained as a therapist, there's this idea, especially more recently, that, this thing you said, no one can make you feel ... I personally call bullshit on that. I think most of the time, part of the time even, we know exactly how we're going to make somebody feel. And I think about this actually quite often, how that works, how you juggle that reality, because to me that feels a lot more authentic than saying no one can make you feel ... Because I feel like, again, that's a perfect segue into the mother-in-law. She knows exactly what she's doing. And she knows it's extremely
Mm-hmm.
hurtful and harmful for a lot of people that she should be caretaking most in her life. And I feel, for me, it's too much of a get out of jail free card to say, well, she can't make me feel that way. I mean, you don't always want poison to kill. Accidents happen, but it's just not an accident. It's an
I may,
interesting dynamic.
yeah, I may rephrase it to, you get to choose how you react to
Right.
somebody else's behavior.
Yeah.
And that may create a feeling in you, of
Mhm.
course, because
Yeah.
I'm not an emotionalist, non-feeling person.
Mhm.
Um, but taking the ownership in your response and the
Yeah,
reaction, I think you do have
absolutely.
100% control over.
Of course.
And so,
Well,
yeah.
and it's like I have a friend who says, it may not be your fault, but it is your problem.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I do think that there is something there, right? It's not your fault that this happened, but it is your problem that you now have to deal with it.
Mhm.
Right. Right.
And I think that but I think, Autumn, to your point, that is a great point, right? How, we don't want to get touchy feely to the point that we're not actually letting people be accountable for
Mhm.
their actions, right?
Mhm.
Right.
Um, and I think that's another topic of conversation, that kind of push and that pull,
Mhm.
right? Grace and mercy versus accountability.
Mhm.
I think that sort of is those balancing forces are really interesting.
Yeah.
But we are heading out to time. So any final thoughts, kind of final rounds of thoughts around these topics as we wrap up?
Well, I'll just say one thing in wrapping up this point. We spent a decade, 2 decades in this marriage having to hear a lot of the time, don't give her so much credit. She doesn't know what she's doing. And I always said bullshit. Sometimes the person needs to be held accountable. Most of the time, the person probably needs to be held accountable. And they also need it all handed back for them to hold. So that's another dance that I look at. How does that work? You know,
Mhm.
how do you rebalance through truly an act of rebalancing? I'm no longer going to shoulder this pain and this stuff you keep spewing on me. Here it is back. And anyway, yeah, it's an interesting conversation. And I look forward to having it more and with more people and how they work with it and how it's
Yeah.
set up. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I really appreciate your counterpoint, Autumn, in that statement, because it is, um, there's the healing that needs to come from the recognition of
Yeah.
how you feel
Hmm.
completely, and what was the impetus for this feeling to arise in you, right?
Right.
Whether it was what they said, what they did, how they behaved,
Hmm.
all of that. And I think there's a lot of healing that goes on there when you nurture that, recognize it, and offer that healing to yourself.
Hmm.
Recognizing they're never going to
Yeah.
say I'm sorry.
No.
So as long as you hope that happens, you're
Mhm.
always going to be hurt. And so that's where part of that, of what I was saying, is like, you get to
No,
choose how you
and I don't
react.
disagree with, I don't fully, I was bringing that other counterpart because
Yeah,
when I've
it's
been
true.
in these
You're
relationships
right.
that I've cut the dead limbs off in let's say the last 5 years,
Hmm.
it needed to happen
Hmm.
because I needed to hand it back to them. And
Sure.
I knew they know what they were doing and that it was
Right.
hurting,
Yes.
and
Yes.
I was worth more than that. And I know I don't ever expect apologies really from most people ever, but I also am interested, and I can't wait to look more at how to hand it back,
Yeah.
how to gracefully hand it back, and
Mhm.
how to work that system instead, you know?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think that's completely an everyday work in process because,
absolutely.
and there's a lot of relationships. Again, that's my real mother, not my mother-in-law wound right now.
Yeah,
And
totally.
so,
Right.
right. But
Yep.
that's another day,
I'm
another
there
topic.
with you on that as well.
Yes.
Yep.
So, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
as with everything, there's a real yin and a yang, push and a
Hmm.
pull, right?
Yeah.
That's
Right.
the theme for I think everything in the world.
Hmm.
Yes. Yes.
So as we wrap up, I know we are all avid readers. So finishing it out, what book are you reading recently? And just give us a little snippet of that. Reagan, do you want to go first?
Sure. I'm reading Untethered Soul. I can't tell you the author right off the top of my head, but it's a short, I'm just halfway into it. And it's about how you can quiet the noises, the noisy voices that make up so much of what we react to during the day. So it's like the noisy roommates is those voices in your head.
Hmm.
And it's the who are you really? You're not the person who smells things. You're not the person who's seeing things, hearing things, or saying things. You are the observer of those things. Yes, ultimately, we are the higher consciousness is saying what we're saying, but it's in reaction oftentimes to the other voices that we're hearing. And
Yeah.
so I'm just getting to the part in the book where we're going to go deeper into how do we become that highest expression of self. So the untethered soul.
I feel like I've
Love
read
that.
that. Yeah.
Most of the people who are in the know in the spiritual world probably have. I
Yeah.
got it late.
Yeah, I do think I have that. I just started reading last night, funnily enough, a book given to me by one of my besties, Jenny. Give Jenny a shout out. It is an autobiography by a woman named Orinda Fink. Um, she's a musician who's got an interesting life story, but I believe it is called My Mother the Witch. And very interesting upbringing with a mom with major issues and abuse and alcoholism, and also I just started last night, but believed herself to also be a witch with very strong powers to manipulate her environment energetically. So yeah, so far
I
so
Big
love
one.
that. Both
yeah, right, yeah,
really on brand, both of you digging into the
of
spiritual
course,
realm there. That makes
definitely,
sense.
yeah, got to bring the
Uh,
witchy for the season.
Right. Yeah. What are you reading, Jerry?
Yeah. So I've just finished The Anxious Generation, which is a little more technical book about children growing up with social media, talking about like the suicidality, their anxiety, sort of childhood experiences of the modern times versus the 90s and before.
Right.
And was very, very interesting. Highly recommend anyone who has school children. I think it's really good. I've seen a lot of book clubs doing it, and I think for good reason. Yeah,
Cool.
really, really good. And just, I think one of the big takeaways from the book for me is just keep kids off of this stuff as long as possible. It
Yeah.
Yes.
is not good for them. The
No.
Right.
comparing each other, the bullying, the
Hmm.
access to content that really they shouldn't have access to. And I am by no means a Puritan who wants to restrict that. Like you know me, kids should ask questions about all kinds of things, but
Hmm.
this unfettered access to the internet is just not healthy for the developing human brain.
Oh, it's
It's
terrifying.
not.
Yeah.
So really, really good book. Highly recommend. But
Nice.
terrifying book as well.
Yeah. Well, Silicon Valley, the people coming up with these phones and technology, their kids don't have them. That's what
Hmm.
I'll
It
tell.
is interesting, isn't it?
Right.
And that was something talked about in a book I read called Stolen Focus, which was excellent, excellent book. Is that we're really going to see sort of a class system coming up where you have the very rich people who aren't addicted to these phones
Hmm.
and the very poor people who are,
Hmm.
and that's sort of the new, the like you said, children of rich families, rich and powerful families aren't growing up addicted to TikTok. That's just not
Right.
how it's happening,
Right.
Yeah.
But poor kids are getting addicted to TikTok, and having all of their attention siphoned into those. And I think it's really unfortunate.
It is
I think it
unfortunate.
is. sort of the collapse of the human experience into a single screen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All
Mm.
right. With that being said, thank you both. This was
Thank you, you
incredible
guys.
discussion.
Yes, it was. Great start. Thanks so much. See you soon.